bringing you in-depth discussion from one of the rad groups of online writers covering the Edmonton Oilers. Are you ready for Oilers Overtime? Join us as we talk news, rumors, trades, player grades, game results, and more. All featured on one of the most glorified teams in the NHL. From the great one to the next one. From the boys on the bus to the decade of darkness. This is Oilers Overtime.
Hey there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of THW Oilers Overtime. My name is Jim Parsons. I'm here with thehockeyraiders.com. As always, we've got a regular cast of characters with us. Maybe not as always, but most of the time anyway. And tonight, while we record this and the Oilers are playing the Anaheim Ducks, we all managed to make it to the show. So congratulations to everybody. Colton Pankiw is with us. Colton, how you doing?
I'm good, Jim. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm happy. I don't know if the second period has started yet. The Oilers were going on a second power play at 5-on-3, and they scored within 20 seconds of the first one. So we'll see what they do in the second here. Julian Mongillo is with us. Julian, how are you?
I'm good. I'd rather be an Oilers fan right now than a Leafs fan.
Yeah. What did you say? Because Buffalo beat the Vancouver Canucks tonight as well. So the Buffalo's got a game at hand or 2 points up or something like that. Yeah.
Yep.
Our Maple Leafs fans are already counting the points and seeing how wide the spread is, right? And of course, Brian Swane is with us as well. Brian, how are you?
Good to have everybody here together tonight. I'm impressed how we managed to pull this off flying by the seat of our pants. Like, maybe we need to do that more often.
Yeah, what'll happen?
I'm sure our producer Matthew would not want to hear that, but
no, he probably doesn't want to.
No,
we'll just keep our eyes on the score sheet while we're doing this, and we'll keep people up to date. Even though by the time they watch this, it'll be like, yeah, I already know what are you talking about. So let's kick things off a little bit tonight with just how the season has started so far. Oilers are 2-0. First game was a close one. They almost let it slip away, but then they win it in overtime. Second game, they let the team kind of creep back in there, but still pulled it out. And this one probably gets Anaheim closer than I think a lot of Oilers fans would hope it would be. Colton, what's your first reaction on the season so far?
Aside from, the first period tonight was a little shaky, like you said, against a Ducks team that's not very great on a back-to-back. But aside from that, no complaints really. I think McDavid's looked really good, obviously, hat trick the other night. And then I think Smith's looked really good too. There's a few guys that have really stood out in a positive way. So, 2-0 so far. Can't really complain.
Yeah, Smith has been really good. There's been a couple goals I'm sure he'd like to have back. That first one against who'd we beat? Vancouver on the first night?
Yeah, the second
he didn't
one
like that. He didn't like that second goal very much, but you could tell. But he fought back. He's played well. He's been getting peppered with shots like crazy, and I thought he's been pretty good. And Connor McDavid's just being Connor McDavid. First game didn't do much, and then all of a sudden 3. He's got one tonight too. He's got an assist and a goal, I think, already. Julian, what are you taking from this early reaction to the season so far?
Yeah, I know it's early, but I don't know. I'm really excited for what these guys look like, the way they're playing. It's not about their. It's just something about their the whole demeanor of the team. I just think that everybody kind of knows their role, and it's just. From the top down, it looks like they're just firing on all cylinders. They're getting contributions from different parts of their lineup. There is some people that obviously need to step up, but overall, I just think that they don't have to rely really on McDavid and Draisaitl to do everything like they did in the past. And the biggest question mark heading into the season was the goaltending, and we've seen it now enough in the preseason. In the first 2 or 3 games here, it doesn't seem like a big a concern as we made it out to be in the off season. And that's great to see. And I like the way they're playing right now.
We have no idea what Mikko Goskin's going to do. We haven't seen a lick of him yet, but they've had a nice spread out schedule so far. So Mike Smith going in for all these games makes a lot of sense. He's had days to rest, no back-to-backs. They were 2 at home and 3 first games at home. So no big deal, right? Brian, this is the first we're seeing tonight anyway. As people watch this, it'll be tomorrow that we're getting the full healthy roster for the Oilers because Devin Shore is back in. He was out for the first 2 games. Ryan McLeod comes out. He goes back down to Bakersfield. What do you think? Like Julian said, I saw you shaking your head there. Looks like a team that just seems really confident, like no matter whether they're down or up. And for the first time this season against Anaheim, they were actually down. They've always led in every game so far. They look like they just are prepared and ready to roll for every game. First healthy lineup. What are you seeing so far?
Yeah, Julian was kind of searching for the words for it there, and I don't know if there is one. But that's what it is, right? It's like the way they carry themselves, their demeanor, just everything about the team, their aura, their savoir-faire, maybe. I think that's a French word. Everybody can look that up. But anyway, that's like something you can't quantify it, right? But it's just there's the vibe around this team, and I totally agree. You just feel that there's something different. There's something really different, and it's different in a good way, a very good way.
I also think even like the just being at home, having fans finally back in the building, I'm sure, they're juiced up to play and ready to go. So that definitely doesn't hurt
hasn't helped the Habs much. Then again, they had fans last year, so they're getting used to it.
Yeah, we had a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I've been quite interested in how they understand that this season is extremely serious. Like, they got to perform well. They got to make the playoffs. They got to get through the first round of the playoffs, probably the second, to really call this a successful year. But they're still really loose. Like, has anybody noticed, like, Draisaitl's talking about McDavid fluffing the puck on his one-timer, and Jesse Puljujarvi and Draisaitl poking fun at each other in their press conference. Like, it's very loose. It's a very easy vibe. Yeah. Everybody's just relaxed and comfortable. Colton, have you seen any standouts so far? Like we mentioned, Mike Smith played pretty well, and Connor McDavid's being Connor McDavid. But has anybody surprised you early on? We know it's early. Everything could change. But any shockers? Anybody like, yeah, he's playing fantastic.
Yeah. Geez. Well, I know a guy that I was really unsure about. I mean, and again, it's so early, right? But Cody Ceci's a guy that I know has gotten a lot of, I don't know.
Slack.
A lot of the fan base has been like ripping on him, throughout the summer. And then I think through the first two games, and then obviously tonight on the first goal, I guess that was a bit more on Keith, but I think he's looked really good so far. I think him and Keith both have, actually, which is great news for Edmonton. I think if they're able to really just stay solid and aren't really too noticeable, I think that'll be great news for them.
What do you think about the fact that some people are already saying, well, the stats numbers, like, I haven't looked closely at the analytics, and again, it's still really early, so it's hard to judge it on 3 games, but people are saying Duncan Keith, Cody Ceci analytics numbers are what they were supposed to be, everybody's whatever, but a lot of the people watching these two together seem like they're pretty steady, seem like they're comfortable, seem like everything's okay. Do you think the pairing has been surprising? Has it been what we figured it would be, but everybody jumped off the handle way too early? What do you see so far?
I think it's been better, honestly. Like I said, I was really unsure about it, and I know the analytics crew, they've even come after Nurse a bit already early on in the season, and I don't know. I'm more of an eye test guy, so I don't really pay much mind to it personally.
Yeah, no, I thought they've looked pretty good. Again, I haven't really looked at the numbers too deeply, but they've had a lot of shots against, especially against Calgary in that second game, right? Like Calgary was just firing from everywhere. I don't know if the scoring chances were very high. I think they probably actually favored the Oilers, but there were way more shots on net. Julian, any standouts for you so far? Anybody that you're kind of like, man, he's looked really good, or they've looked really good, like a pairing like Colton was talking about?
Yeah, my guy right now is Derek Ryan. I just think that he's slid himself right into that third line center spot and just been exactly what the Oilers needed and what they hoped they would get from him. Chipping in a little bit on the offensive side, defensively responsible, put him out there in defensive zone draws. I think they're going to be able to use him in a lot of different ways and for what he's going to be able to provide. And he's looked good penalty killing, and that they've been a good energy line in general, that third line has. So that addition has looked really good so far.
And they're looking really solid tonight. Now, I know the first goal that Cassian scored was assisted by Ryan Nugent-Hopkins on a line change, so Derek Ryan wasn't quite out there. But I thought Warren Foegele, Cassian, Derek Ryan, they look solid. Like, they look really comfortable, really aggressive on the forecheck, hard, getting some ice time. The only line that we haven't really seen a whole lot is the fourth line, but we're seeing more of it already tonight with Devin Shore on there, so we'll see. Brian, what about you? Any standouts so far this season?
Yeah, Jesse Puljujarvi. I mean, I think last week we all predicted he was going to get 30 goals. After watching the first 2 games, like, I'm thinking, 40 could be possible. That's probably a bit of a stretch, but I mean, we talk about how there's a different aura about this team. There's a different aura about him. I mean, obviously we saw him kind of coming into himself last year, but it's really just carried over to this season, and that's really encouraging to see. And I mean, he drew 2 penalties on one shift.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Like, who does that? Like, I've never seen that before. That is so. I mean, that right there, it's got to get him something. So I mean, but he's shipping out. I thought he made a great play. He was out when the Oilers were protecting. Now, granted, it was a 2-goal lead, but they were protecting the 4-2 lead against Calgary. I thought he made a really nice play to get the puck chipped out of the zone and up to McDavid for his empty netter and the hat trick goal. So I mean, we're just seeing it it's manifesting in all aspects of his game now.
Yeah. For me, there's a couple of people like Darnell Nurse is just a horse, right? This guy can play like crazy. And everybody's all like, oh man, he's playing too much too early. I don't think he cares. Like, I really honestly think he plays better when he plays more.
Yeah.
That to me is a big, but Evan Bouchard has been fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, there's a guy that we knew, or at least I kept saying was going to work. I didn't think he'd work his way in this quickly, not in 2 games where he would be already getting some power play time already. But he's penalty killing like crazy.
Yeah,
he's out there a ton, and he seems extremely comfortable. He seems super smart. Tippett's already relying on him, like the second game in. It's amazing to me that this guy is going to take leaps. I wish he was eligible for the Calder. He's not, just because of the games that he's played in the past 2 seasons. But man, if he was, I think he'd win it. Like, the way that he's going so far, it looks incredible. So he's been a huge standout for me. In general, the other thing that I really like so far is the power play. We've liked the power play in the last couple of years. It's been the best power play. It's been at 50%. It's better than that now with the goal that they scored early tonight. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if they set a record, whether it's 30 or like, it's crazy. I mean, Dallas Aiken's coming into the game tonight. It's like, don't take any penalties. Don't take any penalties. And then they take 2 in 1 shift. So it's like, what are you going to do? Right. Colton, anybody that you kind of disappointed in so far? Again, early, so we can't be too hard on anybody, but is there anybody that you're kind of like, I'm not seeing what I think I need to see so far?
Yeah, and it kind of goes into last year too. I was kind of hoping he would turn things around. Like, he showed some really good promise 2 years ago, but Yamamoto's just, I don't know, he just hasn't really been there much. And when he has been there, just some penalties. I know Tippett talked about it the other day. And again, like we keep saying, you just said again, it is early, but it's kind of concerning just based off the fact that he wasn't very good last year either.
Yeah, I am curious about how long his leash will be. You know, like Tippett's already talked about those 2 penalties, and he took 2 unnecessary ones, and he's just not shooting again. Now, maybe he hasn't had the chance to. I don't know, but I'm with you. I haven't been thoroughly impressed. He's getting the opportunities, though. They have not pulled him out of the top 6 yet, and old coaches would have done that. But he's still there. Julian, anybody for you that you're kind of like, not quite there yet for me?
In general, I'll say just the fact that Draisaitl and McDavid have been together on a line. We talked about it a little bit last week. I want to see them, be their own centerman on their lines. Just because I think it makes their matchups against teams so much better for them. The teams have to game plan and pick which line they're going to try and shut down rather than focusing on shutting down one. I think maybe, that's going to probably change and flux in and throughout the season. But that's something I would want them to change. But aside from that, a specific player is, I think, Zach Hyman, but I think that's also because he's kind of dialed back because he doesn't have that guy like we were talking about before as well, where he's got to get the puck to, because Nugent Hopkins isn't that trigger guy like we talked about. Rather than if it was going, the puck was going to Draisaitl, we've seen it on the power play just now, just snipe it. So I think that's something that is working against Hyman right now. He's going to be an effective penalty killer. He's going to go into the corners. He's going to get you the forecheck, win those puck battles. But without giving that puck to someone, it's almost like his effectiveness is almost voided.
Yeah, I wrote an article about how I was surprised at the start of the year that they put McDavid and Draisaitl together and they pulled Hyman off that line. I got some flack from people in the comment section for it, and I will say I was pleasantly surprised. Zach Hyman was the best Oilers forward in that first game, like bar none, by far. And I was extremely pleasantly surprised at how much he took over and drove that line, which is great, right? So that's a really good sign, because I don't know Hyman like Hyman, watching him in Toronto. But I had heard that he's a perfect complementary player to a guy like McDavid, that he's a very good hockey player. He's super smart. He digs up it. I didn't know that he was able to drive a line like that. And he absolutely did. He was the best forward in that first game. Now, I don't want to say things have come back down to earth, because it's not the case. The other guys have stepped up. McDavid, Draisaitl, they've all kind of, but Hyman's been fantastic. So we left him out of the high spots, but I agree. I was a little surprised that they put those 2 together to start the year. Brian, any sort of disappointments for you?
I think really the only one would be Yamamoto. And I mean, Colton expressed it pretty well, what the issues are with him. I think you were saying there, you do start to wonder how long the leash is going to be, but it's only 2 games. So we'll leave it at that. But yeah, I mean, I think he sticks out like a sore thumb, probably is terms of, because I think, and that's really the cool part about this team, is that you look up and down the roster right now and it's like, yeah, there's just very little to complain about. I guess if I was to kind of nitpick at one thing, it's unfortunate Tyler Benson hasn't gotten into any of the action, and he's kind of rotten up in the press box, and which is at least the benefit of Ryan McLeod going down. He can get some games in now. But it makes sense lineup wise. And then beyond that, you hope we haven't seen a lot of the fourth line yet, but we are tonight now with the return of Shore. So, it's there isn't much to complain about yet.
If Yamamoto stays on this trajectory that he's on right now, let's say he doesn't turn things around in the next maybe 5-10 games, what replacement would you guys look to fill that lineup spot, maybe on the second line, or maybe is it Benson? Do you give Benson a shot there?
Are you talking about internally early?
Yeah, if they had to, if he continues, not producing on that second line, what's the move for them? Do they switch Draisaitl back down? Do they, try to get him going that way, or do they just full out replace him and demote him?
I think we might see a shift in lines before we see him get sit. Before we see Tippett sit him or put him up in the press box. That would be my first inclination. That's not what I'm saying.
Would you change someone else on his line, or would you just drop him?
Oh, I think they might. I wouldn't be shocked if he was put up with, say, the top line or something to try and get him going.
Fair.
Yeah, maybe. And I don't know that you want to disrupt positive chemistry for Kyler Yamamoto. You know what I mean? You don't want to screw up everything else that's going for one guy that may not get going.
Well,
that's the only.
I mean, Tippett's track record makes me wonder a little bit about that.
Yeah. But to answer your question, Julian, I wouldn't be surprised if it was somebody like Turris, somebody like Perlini, Benson maybe, because I don't know that Benson's good in a bottom six role. He's better with skilled guys. Yeah. So maybe that's where you put him and see what happens, because I don't know at this point if Benson is much of a downgrade on Kyler Yamamoto if Kyler Yamamoto is not playing up to his ability, right? He is more aggressive. He's more of a forechecker, but whatever. I guess my only disappointment, and I'm saying this sarcastically, is that Brendan Perlini doesn't have 4 goals already. That's a little whatever, because his preseason was so on fire. Yeah. No, for me, I'm not sure if I have a major disappointment on the season. Kyler's the easy answer for sure, and I can see why everybody's saying that. Otherwise, just too many shots, just letting up too many shots. And I know they're not high scoring chances, but there's a lot. They gotta narrow that down a little bit, because you're not going to keep winning games just by outscoring. This may be the team that can do it better than anybody else, but I don't think you're going to consistently win in the NHL if you just keep trying to outscore everybody. So that might be my one.
Jim's the half glass half full guy on the podcast, so he's gonna vouch.
Yeah. Well, let's go to one more topic before we wrap things up here, how they stack up against the rest of the division. I've been a little bit surprised with how this Pacific division has looked so far. We kind of figured, LA, Anaheim, San Jose, those teams would not do anything, and they're playing pretty good. LA's been really good, right? Kopitar guys have stepped up. I think he's leading the league in points or something crazy. Yep. I've been very surprised with the Pacific division. I am not surprised that Calgary has not played very well. I did not think they would be a very good team. I figured Vancouver would be decent. I don't know what's going to happen with Vegas, because they got a lot of injuries and a huge problem. So for me, how they stack up against the rest of the division, Oilers win in the Pacific, because if Vegas continues to have injury troubles and Leonard doesn't quite play up to where Leonard and Fleury used to play, I don't know what's going to happen with that team. It'll be very interesting. Colton, where do you see the Oilers, so far in the division, based on we keep saying early, but how the Pacific division has looked so far?
Yeah, I mean, power rankings right now, I'd say they'd without a doubt be the top team. Vegas, for me, it comes down to the injuries like you talked about. I think if they're able to get healthy, I know Pacioretty's out for a while. I didn't see anything about Stone, so I'm not sure, but it's really dependent on those two guys. I think if they get them back soon, then that's a pretty stacked team over there. But as far as the California teams, I think that'll cool down pretty quick. I think LA is the best of the three, but I think Anaheim and San Jose especially, I think Anaheim could be a lottery team this year, so I'm not expecting them to stay this good for much longer.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's really thinking this is going to be a trajectory that's moving upwards. It probably starts high, energy comes down, and then they drop off the face of the earth, right?
Buffalo.
Yeah, right. Leads the league. Was it last year or the year before for 10 games? Everyone's like, oh my God, Buffalo's going to be fantastic then. Julian, what about you? What do you think the division stacks with the Oilers?
So heading into the season, my kind of prediction was, Vegas on top, and I actually had Vancouver in front of the Oilers in second and then third, and then LA in behind them. So that kind of changed a bit. I don't. The injuries are big for Vegas. They're already kind of, their center depth is not as good as it is heading into the season, and they lose some key players, and they're going to be looking very a lot of question marks for them. So I think Edmonton right now is the favorite in the division to me, but I think they've just outplayed and looked the best out of everyone. I mean, it's early, but I think in terms of the depth, even if you compare the Oilers' depth right now to what the Vegas has in their organization, I just like the amount of the centers are better. I think that's going to be key, and the depth scoring I think is better with the Oilers right now, and I'm liking what I'm seeing.
Yeah, it's hard not to like what to see. So there's always little things you can pluck away, the too many shots or the underlying numbers or this or that, or haven't seen certain people, but the team looks fantastic. Brian, what about you? How do you figure they stack up with some of these teams so far?
Yeah, I think they can win the division. I definitely think I always thought it would come down to them in Vegas. And obviously, I think once the dust settles and Vegas gets healthy, if they get healthy, I think they'll be a team to reckon with come into the playoffs. But, I think the Oilers are going to be a very, very good regular season team. And I don't say that to suggest that they're going to fall off in the playoffs, but you can see that they're dialed in. I think they're going to be dialed in from day one. And sometimes you see it with veteran teams where that's not the case, where they maybe don't go all out because they know they don't necessarily have to in the regular season. I think the Oilers there's just this youthful exuberance and energy, and they're just going to take it to the max. We're not going to see them take their foot off the gas. So I'm with.
I like too that they used to be speed and skill, but they've added these heavy and grinding elements to the game that makes them, they can be in that category with a Vegas and say, you know what, now they can stack up against them. I think that's kind of the biggest change that they've seen over the offseason that's going to help them win more games.
Yeah, that's totally valid. Yeah.
They played three very different teams so far, right? Vancouver is kind of skilled, somewhat like what the Oilers were a couple of years ago, maybe. And Calgary's heavy. They're not terribly skilled and they're not terribly young, but they're big and they're tough and they like to grind you down. And then Anaheim's that little kind of prove me wrong team with some youngsters that are really trying to take the next. They've played three very different teams and had three very different games. And the Oilers are in and winning most of these games. So it's very interesting. For me, the most exciting part about this is that the Oilers, I think, will be good, but what they're going to add come the middle of the season and then at the trade deadline, because they absolutely will. Their window is open now. I wouldn't be at all shocked if they move one of their top picks to add the piece that they need, whether it's not Kyler Yamamoto that steps up and they have that hole in the second right wing, then maybe that's what they do. But I think they're going to add, and I think they're going to give themselves the best opportunity, and that should be very interesting. Again, way too early to be talking about a lot of this because we're not even close to the playoffs yet.
Talk to us in a week and see how we're feeling.
Yeah, that's right.
Remember that time we were on the night before the playoffs started, and then the next time we came on, the Oilers were swept.
Yeah, and they were all talking about how often they could win it, and then we come back on and they're done. Yeah. We're like, wow, that was really not good. Before we close things off, two quick words about Leon Draisaitl. Gets to 200 goals tonight. Colton, what are your thoughts on Leon Draisaitl, both maybe on the season, where he's been so far in his career? Pretty cool milestone tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I think he really started showing a few years ago his goal scoring abilities when he put up that 50-goal season. As far as this year, I think he might get there again. I think he's kind of a dark horse candidate for the Richard. I know everyone talks Matthews, and rightfully so, but I think he could be a guy that's right in the conversation by the end of it.
Yeah, I would. The way the points are going up every year, I think we're going to see 500 or 600 point players for sure this season. Yeah. And Draisaitl will be one of them. And I wouldn't at all be surprised if he hits 50. Julian, you're the one that mentioned maybe we should talk about the 200 goals. So what's your thoughts on Draisaitl?
I just think he's a great player. I mean, he's so important to the team. I just like that he plays like McDavid's in a category of his own, but I think Draisaitl's all-around game is so much more complete. He's more of a, that center type style. I really like his game, but overall, I think if he plays with McDavid all season, sky's the limit for what his upside could be, how many points he could put up. Like, it'd be actually crazy to think of what those two on a same line for a full 82 game season can actually put up points wise. So, I mean, that's kind of the only good thing that's coming of them playing together, is just being able to witness this.
Well, it's funny that you see McDavid get a hat trick, and then you realize very, very quietly that Draisaitl got 3 or 4 points, and you're like, okay, like you don't even think about the fact that he's pretty much connected at the hip to all those goals, right?
David.
Yeah, Brian, what about you? What's the take on Draisaitl's career so far? The 200 goals.
Yeah, he's just sublime. Those two playing together, though, I mean, if they did spend the whole season together, would it be crazy to suggest they could both top 150 points, 300 between them?
I think they could.
Yeah, it'd be something.
It's crazy to think, but like it's definitely within the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
The thing I love the most about Draisaitl, I mean, just watching his shot is crazy, because to me, he might be the second best shooter over, like, one-timer to Alex Ovechkin. Like, I think that is probably a fact now. Like, maybe Austin Matthews has one of the best shots in the league, but Draisaitl coming off that
one-timer is different.
One position. Like, it used to be Stamkos, and he's still there, but Draisaitl and Ovechkin, it's like 1-2 for me with those two guys. And it's crazy. And we've seen what Ovechkin can do just with that shot. Imagine what Draisaitl is going to be able to do over the course of his career with that shot. And then McDavid picking it up and going, well, I love Draisaitl, but I don't really want him to be the only guy that can do this. So then he goes in the offseason and he works on it all summer, so he can do it too. And the two just are having a hoot with each other. So it's really cool to see. Yeah. So 200 goals, pretty awesome. And I don't think he's anywhere close to being done. He's just I think he'll get better and better and better every year. And I don't think it's the kind of shot that people will be able to stop, even though they know it's like nobody's been able to stop Ovechkin. I can't imagine anybody's going to be able to stop Draisaitl, no matter how often he's in that spot and they know it's coming. You're not stopping it. Like, that's just the one goal that he scored tonight on that power play. He put it within 4 inches of the opening as the goaltender sliding across. There's no chance on that. You can't stop that. Everyone knows it's coming. It's a 5-on-3. It's coming, and he scores. He hits a bullseye. It's beautiful. It's unbelievable. So pretty awesome. All right, guys. Well, we'll call it for this one. It'll be a little shorter show tonight, but we'll get back to the game. For those that are watching this tomorrow, hopefully the Oilers maintain the lead and get the win here against Anaheim. For everybody else, check out thehockeyraiders.com. There's tons of great content on there. We'll probably have one of us following up with the takeaways of the game tonight. You can check that out on Hockey Raiders. Check out the YouTube videos for all the other content, all the other teams. And for Jim Parsons, Colton, Julian, and Brian, thanks, guys. And we will talk to you next Tuesday.